This is the Outbound Sales No Fluff Podcast. This real, this raw, yeah, we hitting switches. Ain't no cutesy stories, no rants, no product pitches. This outbound sales prospecting at its best. Yeah, we hold it down from the east to the west. That's on the daily podcast every single day. So tune in, cause this is the way. Your epic cold calling coaching moments and see who wins, who bring that suspense with interviews straight from the experts. So get your knowledge up and put it to work. You get in the mix with the crew. Subscribe and leave a review, cause we serve it straight from the glass. It's the Outbound Sales No Fluff Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Outbound Sales No Fluff Podcast. Excited to jump in today with a topic that I think is really important for folks that are out on the front lines and aren't finding success when they're calling. And the reason why is because they're making too many adjustments without enough data. And I see this over and over and over again with reps in my cold calling community, as well as reps that I coach at organizations. They really do believe that they're better than they are. And they think that there's magic words, phrases, and sentences that are going to automatically create better production at the top of the funnel. Now, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a tone, an approach, a framework, questions you might be able to ask, things that you could do to get better over time. But there's also math behind what to expect when you're going outbound to set a benchmark of what success looks like and what success doesn't look like. And the important element here is that you're delivering a consistent message when you're cold calling so that you can actually measure and understand if you're on track or not. So what do I mean by all of this? What I see over and over again is reps will call, they'll make 50 dials, they'll talk to 4 to 5 people, they get kicked in the teeth 3, maybe 4 of those times, they give up for the day. Show up the next day because yesterday was tough. They call, they make 50 dials, they talk to 3 or 4 people. They're changing up their message. They went to LinkedIn, they found this opener that's supposed to automatically get them better success. They read a post that if you're not converting 30% of your cold calls, then something's broken. You're not saying the right things. But the reality is it's just the math of their market. And so they're not consistent. They go, they don't have success. The next day, they try something they try something different. They make 50 dials, try 3 to 4 connects, trying something different, no success. They do this over a week. They maybe have talked to 20 people throughout the entire week. But throughout those 20 conversations, which isn't enough, by the way, they've had different messaging every time. So they haven't had any success, but they also don't know what's not working. Are they targeting the right people? Are they saying the right things? Or is it them where they need to improve how they're saying the things they're saying? And so what I wanted to cover today is what I call the math of markets and helping people understand what success should look like in the phone and developing this mindset of just getting after it. And the reality is you're probably not doing it enough. And because you don't know what success looks like, you're making too many adjustments, which is actually hurting you, not helping you over time. And so this is going to be another session where I have some visuals along the way, but I want to dig into this at a high level. So this little presentation I did in my community a while back, and basically it's the math of markets, the math of completions, and the mindset around it. And so if we look at Chet Holmes' buyer's pyramid, the first thing you want to understand, and if you follow me for a long time, I say this over and over again, in any given market, you have people that are buying now, people that are open to it, people that are not thinking about it, people that don't think they're interested, and people that know they're not interested. And that usually breaks down into what Chet Holmes has defined here in the buyer's pyramid as around 3% are buying now, 6 to 7% are open to it, 30% not thinking about it, 30% know they're not interested, 30% don't think they're interested, and 30% know they're not interested. Okay, so if we look at this funnel, not a pyramid, we flip this, the bottom, let's say 10% is table stakes. If I'm cold calling into a market, I should get really quality conversations on about 1 out of 10 calls, meaning if I have good targeting, good message, 1 out of 10 are probably going to be open to it and buying now. Very different than what you see online with people saying you should be getting 30, 40% of your meetings scheduled. The reality is, if you're doing enough, it's probably not correct. Now, that's 10%. The next 30% are not thinking about it. This is where your skills will improve and you'll get to a bigger chunk of these folks. But many of these are not even ready to take a meeting yet. They're not thinking about it. They're going to want to capture some information, get insights on who you are, kind of validate some of the things you shared on the phone, do a little bit of research. These are the ones you'll get in the follow-up. And this is where the money is made. Most reps will call, get rejected, try to push a meeting, not do education-based marketing, and they're missing out on this 30% of the market. The next 60%, good luck converting them on a phone call, right? So if we flip this again, we've got 10% table stakes, 30% the winning zone, where we can start to see some improvements, not likely meetings, but definitely activations, and 60% that you're probably not going to get anywhere today. So if this is baseball, 6 out of 10 times you're striking out. And that's just the math. That means you're failing more than you would otherwise. And the other 40% is where you're going to have more generally positive conversations. If we break this down into the percentage of conversations on that 20 that you might have in an entire week, which again is not enough. Let's say it's 4 a day over 5 business days, 20 conversations in a week. That means that if you're good and you have good target message, then you might get 2 meetings open to it buying now. You could get a little bit more than that, but 20 conversations, 2 meetings means you're on track with your math of markets. Now, 6% is not thinking about it. So we're talking about 8 out of 20 where you're getting meetings or activations or strong completions for priority follow-ups. The other 12, you're striking out, right? So if we map this into the actual completions outcomes, again, 3%, that's a meeting. They're buying now. You better, if you have right target, right message, blind squirrel can get that nut. 6 to 7% open to it. Those are probably meetings and activations. And then the winning zone, as I said, you could squeeze some meetings out of this. So you might see your meeting rate move up to something like 15, 20, maybe 30% scheduled. But if you're hitting 40% scheduled rate, you're probably just not talking to enough people in your market and you're missing out on conversations that you could circle back around with that currently say they're not interested. You certainly are in your swim lane, your ICP, and they may have a current provider and things like that. You want to get them on your radar. You want to know that they are picker-uppers. You want to know their current state. You want to gather information on who their provider is when their contract renews, et cetera. So if you're scheduling 40% of your meetings and you're not getting into the rest of these conversations, something might be broken, right? So you can kind of see the breakdown here of what to expect. Again, if we map that back to the outcomes here. So this is meetings. This is some activations, maybe some meetings. These are mostly completions with a lot of information, right? A lot of information captured. When we think about the North Star, what we really want to shoot for is a situation where today you're making 50 dials and only talking to 3 to 4 people. It means something's broken on your list strategy. You should be using buckets. You should be using tight necks to fast pass your buckets. And for every 50 dials, the North Star, when you've really nailed target message, should be 8 to 12 conversations. Now, from the 8 to 12 conversations, that should get you to about 5 to 7 completions. That maps right back to the math of markets, right? So you're sitting at a 40 to 62% range. Now, when I'm running my calls, I'm targeting 55% above to ensure that my data quality is right and my messaging is on track. And then finally, 1 to 2 meetings is when you're really honed in. We are definitely calling the right people. They're in swim lane and our message is tight. If we're not there, maybe something's broken. But if you're not quite there yet, it doesn't mean that you need to make significant adjustments. It means you need to do more. Most of you guys doing 50 dials a day, this should be an hour and a half of work. Probably an hour and a half at the 8 to 12 conversation range, because with the right talk time, that's about 30 minutes of talk time, 30 minutes of dial time. It's hard to get 50 dials out in 30 minutes. It's a very fast dial velocity. If you're using a one-to-one dialer. Now, if you're using parallel dialing, this is going to change, but you're going to have a significant decrease in your dial to connect rate, and all the math kind of plays out anyway. But this is the North Star we're shooting for. And if we look at our math of sales based on these benchmarks, the reality is if you're connecting at around a 20%, you're completing at 60%, you're activating at 20%, you're scheduling at 15%, it means that for every 69 dials or so, you're right on track to get about a meeting a day. A meeting a day keeps the doctor away. But again, the whole point of this episode was most of you are sitting around these 20 conversations or maybe 30, 20 completed conversations. You're maybe getting one meeting out of it and think you're failing when the reality is you're probably on track. You don't need to make any adjustments. There's no special script, etc. You just have to do more. Collect the information, get your buckets built, and the fat stacks will be in the circle backs. The reality is once you do this consistently for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, eventually you won't be cold calling anymore. And you're going to be able to call with first party intent data. First party intent data being conversations you had, their current vendors, their current state. You're gathering information on when the window for selling to them is right. And that's when you can start to see what some of these people talk about with a 30, 40, 50% scheduled rate. That's my little rant today. If you enjoy these types of episodes, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. If you get value from this, I am trying to grow the podcast here in 2025. It's really small and embarrassing at the moment. And so if you like my content and you want me to keep doing these things, please share with your community. Also, if you haven't checked out the YouTube, again, this had some visuals along it. I highly recommend you subscribing over there. And in the meantime, keep yourself out there, get out there, do more, and know your math of sales, know your math of markets, put some objectivity into your world. And I guarantee if you commit to the process and you do it for a long, sustained period of time, things will get easier. But the reality is the information that we capture will not happen without the conversations.